Oh no, I'm not live. I'm recording this because I'm having a heck of a time with Rumble.
Are you ready to launch your passion to a new level? Well, don't go anywhere because Dr. Craig is going to show you how to create your plan B that fulfills your passion, creates additional wealth, and your own career safety belt. So tune in, sit back, grab a cup of coffee because the doctor is in the house.
Yes, that's correct. I'm recording this. I'm going to push it on to Rumble, upload it. But I had a tough time with Rumble with the live streaming, so I got to check it out. I don't know what happened, but this is a lot easier. I'm doing this on StreamYard, and I can change different things. So I'm launching this. I had this on a podcast a few years ago, and then I stopped. Now I'm going back to it on career consulting. But I wanted to start, as you can see, I'm an old guy, and I wanted to start and give you my background on what, where I came from is in terms of education, what I went through, and where I am now. So let's take a look back. I went to Westchester University. I studied biology and chemistry, and I wanted to teach school. But I'm part of the baby boomer and generation. And back then, probably anybody listening to this, millennials, anybody under 40, probably doesn't understand that the baby boom generation, there was a lot of us. You had to know a senator to get a good job. I mean, it was crazy. So when I graduated from college, I wanted to get into teaching. There weren't any teaching jobs. So I went into a warehouse. It was Acme Markets in Philadelphia. So I'll be specific. And I was a selector loader. So I loaded up the pallets and then I put them in a truck. And I was glad to have a job because I was married. And after about a year, we were expecting a child. So I needed a job. There weren't any teaching jobs. So if any of you that are looking at listening to this, you'll understand what it's like to have a tough time getting a job. So anyway, I did that for a few years. This was back in the 70s. And I had a biology degree, like I mentioned. So they needed an inspector for fresh fruits and vegetables. So I got the job at Acme Markets. Stayed there for 4 or 5 years. Learned a heck of a lot on the job on how customs people and the USDA, how they inspect fruits and vegetables as it comes into the docks and so forth. So it came into the warehouse. I had to inspect it. I had to check on decay and so forth. And if it wasn't any good, we rejected the load. So that went on for 5 years. After that, I had an opportunity to get a job at it was called Geno's in King of Prussia. And I was there for a year. I loved the job. But here's one thing that's very, very important that happens in employment and so forth is Marriott bought out the chain. Matter of fact, the guy who started was Gino Marchetti, uh, who was a football player, but Marriott bought out the chain and they didn't take anybody. So after a year, I was without a job, looking for a job. I Somebody helped me out. I got a job selling. Guess what it is? Plastic. Because there's a manufacturer that made plastic pots, plastic this, plastic that, and I hated that job. It was a pain in the ass going around trying to sell stuff. The guy, I don't know why he hired me. He had like $1.5 million in receivables. It was crazy. There was no way he was going to collect it. People were hoping that he'd go out of business and they wouldn't have to pay him back. So what happened is something came up, and I took my experience with produce and so forth, and I got hired at Wendy's International in Dublin, Ohio. So went there, and it was a difficult move. So I was moving from Pennsylvania out to Ohio. My family, my wife, and the two children that I had. had to stay there, and I could come back like every 3 weeks and visit them. So that lasted for like 3, 4 months till I moved them out there. Ohio was fine. We were in Dublin, Ohio. It's where the Wendy's Corporation was. That's where the first store started, and this was in the seven. Well, excuse me, it was in '82, and I liked it. I was in charge of the salad bar with the produce coming in and making sure it went to all the distribution locations, and it came in if there were any problems. The area directors or whomever could give me a call, say, "What's this? What's that? What should I do with, um, the lettuce?" And it has brown spots, and so I was kind of like, you know, quality assurance guy on helping everybody out to get the right product in there and making sure nobody stiffed us on product quality or quantity. So I was there 5 years, but before I left, I had a big project where I rolled out the baked potato. That was in '83, and man, that was something. But what we incorporated, I had a team of like 4 or 5 people. What we incorporated to get the potatoes into the regional distributors. Now, Wendy's didn't own these distributors. They basically told them what to do. Wendy's, they had specifications on all their products, from baked potatoes to the beef patties to all kinds of things. Whatever it is that came into the distributor, it was purchased and it had a certain specification. It wasn't like a retail grocery store where they brought it in and one day you had 40 cucumbers in a box and the next day you had 50 cucumbers in a box. There were set specifications. So that's how they worked. And I enjoyed it, but I could see the writing on the wall. We did the FOB buying, which was the first time that a food service entity like Wendy's bought stuff FOB from California. We went all over the place to get potatoes. We sourced it all over, like Wisconsin, Idaho, Washington, wherever we can get the right specification on potatoes. We just didn't buy a potato. It had to have the right count and the right size, right variation or range in weight for each potato. So that's what I was in charge of. So as we went along, I could see the writing on the wall that they were getting rid of the salad bar, and I wasn't going to be doing that. And I could see that they were moving people around. I didn't want to go into stores. I didn't want to do any of that. So I left and went into a brokerage company for fresh fruits and vegetables. Did that for a few years. I got kind of tired of that, so I did my own thing, and it had entailed a lot of traveling. So as you can see right now, I've moved around a few times, and this is up to where I was in my 40s, and I was in a partnership with somebody else, and the partnership went through, and I didn't have a job. And it was tough. I had 4 kids at that time. So what do you do? So we went back to Pennsylvania, and I did odd jobs, this kind of thing, got into brokerage. In Florida, had to move down to Florida, and here's the family. Boom, we moved down to Florida. That was a tough transition. So stay down there. Decided after a few years that I didn't like the traveling, so I thought, well, let me try education. So finally, I got back into teaching, which was in 1996, and this was in Florida. And the money was piss poor. I mean, it was terrible compared to what I was making at the other business. Wendy's paid very well for that time frame. My partnership paid very well, but the partnership ended. So with that being said, I got into education, and I thought, well, I can't do this at this salary. So I looked to get a job in Georgia. So going from Florida to Georgia made a lot more money. And I thought, well, how do I even more money than I'm making. So I went back and got my master's in science and my doctorate in organizational leadership, and that almost doubled my salary in Georgia. And this was like north of Atlanta, where I was in a particular school district. I taught science, but it was basically computer based. It was for kids that were in an alternative school because they got kicked out of the other school. So it was a limited amount of kids in the class, say 15 at the most, because that's all they had in computers. And once they were there for 6 months, they went back into the mainstream of the high school or wherever what area they were in. If they lived south of the county, they went to that school. So wherever they came from, they went back into that school system. So I stayed there. Let me see. This is now 2014. I decided to retire. So I had the pension. I got Social Security. My wife retired from nursing, which helped out a lot. I forgot to mention that. It's always great to have a spouse or a partner that's has a great job, and she had a great one. So retired, and I got back into not back in, but I got back into the workforce on my own. I had my own deal, and it was running and cycling events, and I'm still doing it now. So I feel like I have a plethora of information to have different seminars and tutorials on how to have a side gig, how to keep your job and survive, because that's, 20 years of business and 20 years of teaching, so I got a lot to talk about. So I want to go back to what I had on the podcast and disseminate this information so it'll help other people. Because, like my father used to say, it's a freaking jungle out there, and it is. And now, today, it seems to be a nightmare. So, with that being said, I'm going to have this career consulting. I'm going to load it into Rumble. I'm not putting this on any other social media. This will just be on Rumble. The people that are listening, I have my own Facebook page, Destination Training. So after listening, if you go back, I post information on there, and like it and follow me, and that'll help me out. So I want to get started on this journey again. The podcasting worked out very well, but I just like this streaming. StreamYard is great. I can do different things, show different things. I'm not good at the Rumble live stream, but I'll get there. So I have a lot of stories to tell. Some of them are funny. Some of them are not so funny. And that's what I plan on doing. So my next one will be on Friday. So probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I have another channel that I'll be on Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm looking at doing this one probably Friday, 11 o'clock. I think I'm going to keep it 11, 12 o'clock, something like that. And that's something I can do on a regular basis. So here I am. Tune in. And Friday we'll get into the nitty-gritty. And
Are you ready to launch your passion to a new level? Well, don't go anywhere, because Dr. Craig is going to show you how to create your plan B that fulfills your passion, creates additional wealth, and your own career safety belt. So tune in, sit back, grab a cup of coffee, because the doctor is in the house.